First Spotify, now Slack. Wall Street may be losing its iron grip on Silicon Valley. Slack's success puts more pressure on banks to demonstrate what's so sacred about their tried and true IPO. With Slack's apparently successful direct listing on Thursday, Silicon Valley scored another win in its tug-of-war with Wall Street and raised more questions about whether tech companies need the traditional support of big banks. Slack, the workplace messaging software popular in tech and media circles, became the second large tech company to debut on the New York Stock Exchange with a direct listing rather than an initial public offering IPO. Pursuing a direct, if you want to see Wall Street have less control over the American economy, that's a good thing. But if you are worried, 136 million shares of Slack traded hands on Thursday, showing there was plenty of interest in shares but the stock price remained relatively stable through its first day of trading, opening at $38.50 and ending the day at $38.70. Slack. But here are the basics. Rather than how an IPO has bankers sell new shares to clients and other well-connected Wall Streeters on the night before the first day of trading, a company instead lets its existing shareholders decide if they want to sell their shares on the free market after the opening bell. So Slack, and although Wall Street banks have found a way to make money off of direct listings, the approach has been cast as risky because it relies on an invisible hand-esque method for the market to discover what a stock should be worth when it debuts. So naysayers, but neither Spotify nor Slack had abnormal peaks or valleys. If one is a point and two is a line, we're firmly in the line stage. The third direct list, Airbnb, has been closely studying the direct listing, with Spotify CEO Daniel Ek speaking with Airbnb CEO Brian Chesky about the process. Airbnb says it is. Skeptics have voiced that direct listings only make sense for a very particular set of companies, ones that are profitable, or ones that have these well-known brands. But although Slack, at the very least, the last two direct listings seem to suggest there is no obvious negative for companies pondering disruption of the Wall Street model. And so that may Recode and Vox have joined forces to uncover and explain how our digital world is changing you and changing us. Subscribe to
Raindrop, drop top, top smoking, no cooking the hot pot. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, that. Looking up, open the park,